Chapter 1, Antagonism and Contrition. 368-20. 20. Chapter 1, Antagonism and Contrition. Tension. That was the only word to describe the feeling in the air between the two golden retriever twins as they made their way down the street to their house in their halves of their power-split vehicle, neither of them saying a single Chapter 1, Antagonism and Contrition. That was the only word to describe the feeling in the air between the two golden retriever twins as they made their way down the street to their house in their halves of their power-split vehicle, neither of them saying a single word. Usually, they were always in a good mood, chatting, laughing, and got along very well with each other. However, it was the complete opposite this time. The reason there was tension in the air was because the twins had failed at a mission. That mission being stopping the ladybird, a villain who loved to steal anything she saw that was shiny. Ever since they joined the PAW patrol and became mighty pups and earned their superpowers, Ella having the power to grow and Tuck having the power to shrink down to the size of an ant, they would always foil the ladybird's evil plot and save the day. But this time, however, Ladybird had managed to get away. The twins, along with the mighty pups, were on a mission to try and retrieve a shiny, golden statue that the ladybird had stolen from the Adventure Bay Museum. The statue was very important because it was Mayor Goodway's great-great-great-great-grandfather, Grover Goodway, the very first mayor of Adventure Bay. It was a huge part of the town's history, and if anything were to happen to it, it would be a catastrophe. The ladybird had superpowers that gave her the ability to fly just like a bird, and super strength, which is how she managed to steal the statue. She lifted it as if it were a feather, just like that. Mayor Goodway witnessed the theft and called the PAW patrol to help get it back. Hearing that the ladybird was behind the crime, he called Ella and Tuck to join along on the mission. But alas, the statue wouldn't be coming back to the museum that day. The mighty twins had failed. Failed really badly. As they were chasing the ladybird, Tuck came up with the idea of using his shrinking powers and sneak onto the ladybird and make her drop the statue from her hands. But Ella was skeptical about his plan, and told him that they should try having her block Ladybird's way with her giant powers. But Tuck told Ella that they could go along with both of their plans, Tuck shrinking down to ant size and riding a giant Ella, who would block the ladybird while Tuck jumped onto her without being seen and kicking the statue right from her grasp. Ella was still a bit hesitant, but she finally gave in and told Tuck to hop on as she grew to her giant size. The ladybird was certain she had finally gotten away from the mighty pups, but all her hopes were crushed when a giant Ella appeared right in front of her, blocking her way, startling her. But what the twins didn't know was that ladybird could see Tuck on Ella's head, even though he was tiny. She knew what they were planning, and she smirked as she saw Tuck pounce from Ella to her. But Tuck wouldn't even make it to the statue. Ladybird, watching Tuck's moves, made perfect contact as she slapped hard him in midair with her left hand, sending him flying down towards the forest as his screams echoed throughout the air. Gasping, Ella dashed to where Ladybird had slapped Tuck to try and catch him. This was the perfect opportunity for Ladybird to make her escape. Right when Ella turned and ran to catch her brother, Ladybird took off as fast as she ever flew away from the twins until she had lost them. Ella rushed as quickly as she could to her falling little brother. Thankfully, she managed to get under him just in time to catch him on her back. As Tuck hopped off of her back and onto the ground, they grew and shrunk back to their normal sizes. You'll also like 1.1K38. Everest finds Marshall very upset due to how the events have affected him, and the only thing that is standing in his way was her warm red heart. But there's a very emotion. 67.8K733. It has been a while since the PAW patrol pups have been on a mighty mission, and the pups were used to doing their normal rescues, but what happens when all of the vil. 12K481. Complete. Ryder is a teenaged boy in foster care. His parents died when he was 2 and was put into the foster system. He has bounced from one home to another. Either H. 347K15.2K. And quote, I know I'm a monster, but even I have my limits, and quote, I shouted him. He shouldn't have done that. And quote, wait, please, let me explain. I'm sorry dash and quote, end quote. 5.9K68. When a young rockruff arrives in a completely different world, she is hunted down by every threat Matthew, Champ, and the Paw Patrol have faced so far. Matthew must be W. Tuck had mixed emotions of sadness and embarrassment on his face, but he still thanked his sister for saving his life. At first, Ella was happy that Tuck was safe and sound. But the expression on her face turned to a look of exasperation as she started to chew him out for not letting her go with her idea by herself because she knew how risky Tuck's was. Tuck was taken aback by his sister's sudden change in emotion. She had never scolded him before. Usually, she would kind and forgiving whenever he did something wrong. But today, it seemed like, wasn't one of Ella's kind and forgiving moments. Tuck, hurt and angered by his sister's words, became defensive and snapped back at her that he didn't intend to mess up on purpose, and that she should have picked a better spot on Ladybird for him to jump on without her spotting him. This caused an argument to break out between the siblings, which caught the attention of the other mighty pups, who were surprised by the sight of the twins bickering, because they got along very well and never argued and fought. The PAW patrol were so caught up in trying to stop the argument that they didn't notice that the Ladybird had already managed to make her escape. After the quarrel was put to a stop, everyone turned to their heads in the direction the Ladybird was flying, only to let out shocked gasps when they saw that she was nowhere in sight. They searched all around the area to try and find any sign of the villain. But they found nothing. The ladybird had finally won. She had gotten away, and the twins had let it happen. It was then that Ryder insisted that the twins go home and cool off, and that they would search for Ladybird themselves. The twins started to protest against this, but they knew arguing with their leader wasn't going to make things easier, so they both just gave a small smile and nodded reassuringly. But deep down they were both still cross, and glared slightly at each other. Now they were out of their super suits and making their way back home. Ella, however, drove her vehicle in front of Tuck, who was driving his vehicle a good distance from her. They were still angry at each other, and refused to speak or drive beside each other. Today had been a very bad day, and the twins knew that things were going to get a lot worse at home. Pulling into the driveway of their house, they saw that their owner Lydia's car was gone. They knew that she wouldn't be home for a while because she had told them that she had a lot of errands to run. After parking, the twins turned off their vehicles and got out of them and slowly made their way to the doggy door at the front of the house, Ella's expression being that of exasperation as Tuck had his head tilted down and glared at the ground as he walked. As they walked, the tension between them grew and grew with each step they made. But when they entered the house, Tuck decided that fighting over a minor thing was pointless, and wanted to talk to her and try to work things out. Sure, the statue was very important to Adventure Bay. Arguing over a plan to try and stop the ladybird gone awry? What good was that going to do? Tuck deep a breath, letting his anger subside so he could calm down a bit. Then he began. Ella, he started. Look. I know that things didn't work as we hoped, and we're both mad at each other about it, but don't you think that he didn't even get to finish his sentence as Ella stopped and furiously turned around to face her brother, a snarl etched on her face as she yelled at him. This is all your fault. Huh? Tuck stopped what he was saying and stared at his sister in shock. Excuse me? I said, this is all your fault, Tucker. Ella repeated, using Tuck's full first name. The only time she called him Tucker, which was Tuck's full first name, but he preferred to just be called Tuck, was whenever she was angry or upset with him, which was relevant to the situation they were in now. Tuck continued to stare into his sister's cold blue eyes before he felt the anger consume him all over again, making him forget what he was about to say to her. He just wanted to try to talk things over and make amends, but she was blaming him for all of this? That was just way below the belt. My fault? My fault, he growled, a snarl appearing on his face, as well. You think this is all my fault? I already told you, I didn't mess up on purpose. How was I supposed to know the ladybird was going to see me even though I was the size of an ant? You should have chose someone else on her to jump. Ella retorted. But knew, you had to take the risky way and nearly get yourself killed. Some hero you are. Tuck's fur bristled as he let out a growling, before saying, you should have just let the situation slide, but knew, he mocked his sister, you just had to make a big fuss over it. I understand that you're worried for my safety, but you don't have to get pissed off and scream at me. You should be glad you had someone there to save your butt from nearly getting killed. You should be thankful you have a sister there to protect you from bullies and harm. Ella shouted. Ever since Mom and Dad died, we promised to take care of each other and watch each other's backs, even when Lydia adopted us. But now. Ella sighed bitterly before looking down at her front paws and muttering something that Tuck wasn't sure if he heard correctly. What did you say? Tuck demanded. Ella furiously shot her head up with a loud growl and yelled, I said, I'm starting to regret that promise. I should have just let you fall all the way down to the ground instead of catching you on my back. Tuck was stunned. What do you? He began, but Ella held up her paw to silence him. I'm not finished yet, she said. Tucker. She closed her eyes and sighed before opening them and glaring at her twin again. Sometimes I wish. She stopped again. You wish what? Ella sighed again. Sometimes I wish I were an only pup. Tuck's eyes went wide. Huh? What do you mean, you wish you were an only pup? Tell me, Ella. What do you mean? He shouted that last sentence. I'm saying I wish that you were never born with me. Ella exploded, which made Tuck jump back at the volume of her voice. Life would be a whole lot better if you never existed. 2. Silence. Tuck felt like he had been shot straight in the heart when she said those words. He never expected his sister, his own flesh and blood, to wish something so offensive as wishing he was never born, let alone wishing that he never even existed. Tuck felt his legs become weak as he stared at his sister, who was taking deep breaths after her tirade. He felt tears brimming his eyes as his anger turned into anguish as he mewled. Ella, you don't really mean that, do you? Tuck whimpered. A tear trickled down his cheek, showing that his sister's words had severely and verbally hurt him. Ella saw the tear sliding down his cheek. Deep down, she knew that what she had said to him was way below the belt, and she regretted it. She didn't mean to make him cry, but she was so angry that she couldn't think clearly and apologize to him. It was like a demon had possessed her and taken control of her mind and hurling awful insults. She saw Tuck wipe his eyes with his paw as he sniffled as she heard the faint sound of his shaky breath as he let the tears flow. In the back of her mind, Ella thought, oh, no, what have I done? I said such awful things and made my own brother cry. Why did I have to go and say something like that? I'm not that type of pup. I need to calm down and give him a hug and apologize. But her strong emotions prevented her from doing that. Instead, her glare deepened as she said, Tucker, look at me. She pointed her paw to her face. Do I look like I didn't mean it? You know, you really are a thorn in my side sometimes. Now leave me alone and don't talk to me. Then she turned around and finished that with a loud humph. Then she began to walk away, leaving her crushed twin brother in a pool of tears. Then, Tuck felt something inside of him. It felt like a small flame had been lit inside of his chest. Then it began to grow bigger and bigger, brighter and brighter as he gnashed his teeth and a growl began to form in his throat. And like the flame, the growl grew bigger and bigger, louder and louder as he locked eyes on his sister walking away. It was as if his vision went completely red, like a bull whenever it saw a matador's red cape in a bullfighting event, and like the cape, Ella was his target. Ella. You bitch. He thought furiously. After all I've done for you, you decided to thank me by crossing the line and wishing I was never born. Saying that your life would be better if I didn't exist. Well, let me you tell something, Missy. You've gone too far this time. And now you have to pay the price. I'm gonna make you suffer. 1. Rayarg. Without thinking, Tuck let out an enraged cry as he charged towards his sister like a cheetah chasing its prey. Ella didn't have time to turn around as she felt Tuck knock her down to the floor at full force. She let out a cry of surprise and pain as she hit her head hard against wall and fell back onto her back, putting her paws over her throbbing forehead as a scream of agony came out of her mouth. But once she was able to uncover her head and open her eyes to see surroundings, she stopped and stared in front of her. Then, a look of horror crossed her face as she made out who was in front of her. There, standing right above her was Tuck, a look of hate-filled rage on his face, nostrils flaring with each heavy, hot breath he took, his teeth gnashed so hard, it was as if they could break at any moment. Ella could swear when she looked into Tuck's eyes, she thought she could see fire in them. Like some sort of demon had taken control of him and turned him into a maniac. That's how terrifying the look on his face was. Ella continued to stare at her brother as tears began to form in her eyes. Tears of fear and shock. "TT Tuck, what are you doing?" she whimpered. "Shut up," Tuck said in a low voice, a voice filled with malice. Ella continued to whimper, and she tried to say something, but it only angered Tuck even more, causing him to raise his paw and strike her hard across the face. Ella let out a squeal as she took her paws off of her forehead, which revealed a huge bruise on the spot where it had hit the wall and covered her nose, which was now bleeding from the strike. TT Tuck, please, STO dash. I said shut up. Tuck screamed in her face. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. He stamped his paw on her head repeatedly, matching the number of times he yelled those last words. With each blow, Ella's painful screams became louder and louder, as the blood coming from her nose poured out quicker, and tears began pouring down her face. She could taste iron in her mouth, and she knew that Tuck had managed to knock some of her teeth out from how hard he was hitting her. 1. Tuck stopped hitting her and lowered his face close to her now bleeding and battered, tear-stained face, and, with that malice-filled voice, he spoke. How dare you? All our life we've watched each other's backs and took care of each other. Who's the one that stands up for you whenever someone picks on you? Me. Who's the one that helps you out whenever you're in a difficult situation? Me. Who's the one that loved you and stuck by your side ever since our parents died? Me. I was there for you your entire life. I cared for and loved you ever since we lost our parents. And. Another tear rolled down Tuck's face, despite the rage on his face, as he remembered the day his and Ella's parents tragically perished, but he quickly wiped the tear away with his paw and continued glaring down at his battered twin. Tuck continued, and what thanks do I get for doing all that? Huh? Do you know, Ella? Oh, I know. You told me that you wished I weren't born with you. In fact, to add insult to injury, you said life would be better if I never existed. That hit way below the belt. Tuck closed his eyes and turned his head to the right. He clenched his jaw tight, his nostrils flaring quickly with each hot breath he took, as he felt his blood pressure rise even higher. Then, he gnashed his teeth and turned back to Ella, pure bloodlust showing in his eyes as he growled. You know, Ella, Tuck began, I thought you were always there for me. But no. You just had to throw it all away, didn't you? He raised his paw in the air, signaling that he was about to strike her again. And now, you must pay the price. 1. Before Tuck could bring his paw down, Ella mustered the strength to lift her own paw and strike Tuck in the face. Tuck let out a cry of surprise, stumbling back a few inches and falling over, giving Ella the opportunity to make her escape. Despite the intense pain all over her body, Ella managed to pull herself up off the ground and started running towards the doggy door. She let out a small cry as she limped with each step she took, causing her to not run as fast as she could. Tuck rubbed his cheek. He could taste iron in his mouth and knew his mouth was bleeding. Why you? He growled, turning his head in the direction his sister was running. He charged after her, his speed far faster from Ella's injured state. Ella beeped her pup tag, frantically calling Ryder for help. Ryder! It's Ella! Please! You have to help me! Tuck's gone crazy. He's going to kill, but before she could finish her sentence, Tuck pounced on her from behind, knocking her to the floor and pinning her. Plus. Where do you think you're going, sister? Said Tuck, ending that last word with a tone of intense spite. Then, Tuck raised his head down to his sister's neck and wrapped his teeth around her collar. Then, with a quick jerk, he ripped the collar off of her neck and held it in his teeth. Ella could only stare and cry as her brother spit out her collar on the floor. Now, to make sure you can't call for help, Tuck said. He raised his right paw and, with a ferocious cry, he swiftly brought his paw down and stomped down hard on the tag on her collar. Then he stomped on it again. And again. And again. He kept stomping on it until the logo on the tag was completely shattered, making it unable to contact Ryder or any other of the PAW patrol. Ella could only sob as she watched Tuck's maniacal behavior. She couldn't move, the pain from Tuck tackling her made it excruciating. Tuck stared down at the destroyed pup, inhaling and exhaling rapidly from stomping on it repeatedly. Then, he looked at his sister, and, despite the pain, Ella could her blood freeze when her eyes caught his. That cold, scary glare, Ella could see, was something she had never seen on Tuck before. It was if he was different pup, like he had been possessed by some sort of evil spirit, and the good Tuck was trapped behind an invisible wall in his brain, banging his paws on the wall, yelling and pleading to be let out and take control of himself again. But the spirit was too strong. Ella watched as Tuck walked towards her, the scary glare still on his face. "Gee, get away from me, you maniac!" Ella cried, trying to scoot away, but failing because of the pain. Tuck ignored her, and continued making his way toward her, then stopped and glared down at her. Ella was now sobbing uncontrollably. Half of it being from the pain, and the other being out of fear for her life. "T, Tuck," Ella said through her tears. "I am sorry, Tuck. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean what I said. I was just so mad that I wasn't in the right state of mind. Please. Have mercy. I'm so sorry. I love you." This only added more fuel to Tuck's ire, as he bared his teeth and growled, then he screamed with hot tears rolling down his cheeks, "If you really did love me, you wouldn't have said the things you've said. After everything I've done for you, you've just decided to throw all that down the fucking drain. You. Tuck stopped and closed his eyes as he remembered the words Ella had insulted him with. "Life would be a whole lot better if you never existed." While those words echoed in his head, Tuck gritted his teeth even harder to the point where they could have cracked, and his growl growing louder as he felt the rage inside of him rise over its limit. "Rayarg!" With another cry of fury, he quickly bit down hard into the side of Ella's neck, but all she could let out was a small squeak, being that she was in too much pain to scream, and the fact that she knew she wasn't going to make it out of this alive. She knew she was going to die, and it would be from her own flesh and blood. Her own brother. Murdered by her twin. Then, with as much force as possible, Tuck yanked his head back and ripped a chunk of flesh out of the side of Ella's throat. Blood immediately started gushing out like a waterfall. There was no doubt that Tuck had bitten down so deep and hard he had dissected her carotid artery. Ella's eyes grew to the size of saucers, as blood had already pooled around her neck down to her waist. Loud gurgles emitted from the golden retriever as she clutched her paws around her throat, gasping hard for air and trying to stop the bleeding. But it was no use. The damage had already been done. At that moment, realizing what he had just done, Tuck gasped and snapped out of his blind rage. He stared at his sister, his face turning from anger into pure shock. No, he cried, then ran over to his fallen twin. No. Fuck. Damn it. What have I done? 1. He picked up his sister's head in his paws and examined the wound on her neck. Oh, God, he cried, nearly when he saw how serious the wound was. He almost puked at the sight of the gaping, gushing rip was, but he managed to gulp down the rising bile just before it came up. Without thinking, he placed his paw over the wound, trying to apply pressure to it. He knew it wouldn't stop it, but he didn't know what else to do. What could he do? As he held his dying sister, his blonde fur and paws became soaked and red from her blood. Come on, Ella, stay with me. Stay with me, he cried, his voice cracking at the final sentence, tears filling his eyes. Ella could only respond with a gurgle as she drifted in and out of consciousness. She was losing too much blood. Ella. Tuck cried, tears now streaming down his face. Look at me, Ella. Look at me. Everything's going to be okay. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Ella let out another gurgle, then looked at Tuck with her eyes barely open, her vision going blurry every second that passed. Finally, she coughed up a bit more blood before she managed to let out a single word, Tuck. Yes, Ella, I'm here. I'm right here. You are not going to die, damn it, you will not die, he cried with a mix of anger and despair. But to his surprise, Ella let out a soft chuckle. Ella? Tuck. Ella began, then she coughed as more blood exited her mouth, droplets of it splattering onto Tuck's face, causing him to flinch a bit. However, he didn't care about that. His sister was dying, and it was all over a stupid situation. After coughing, Ella spoke again, her voice coming out choked and whispered, "Tuck, why did you have to go and do this to me? Why?" Tuck shut his eyes tightly and began sobbing. I don't know, Ella," he said, voice choking as tears poured down his face like raindrops flowing down a window. "I was too mad. I couldn't control myself. You said that your life would be better if I didn't exist. It hurt me. That's why I lost it. And now." He sniffled and choked back a sob. "Now I hurt you, badly. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Ella's breathing became quicker, tears flowing down her eyes, as well. "Oh, Tuck, you know that, I really didn't mean all that," she said, panting after every few words, her voice soft and shrill. "I couldn't control myself, either. My anger clouded my mind. The words just spilled out. I wanted to take it back, but I wasn't thinking clearly. I'm so sorry, bro. From the bottom of my heart, I really am." "It's okay, Ella," Tuck replied. "Come on. I can take you to a vet. We can dash." "No," Ella replied. It's too late now. I don't have much longer. I've lost a lot of blood. It's all over for me." "No," Tuck cried, raising his voice. "You are going to make it. Here, let me put on my back dash." He was interrupted by Ella again. This time, she had pressed her blood-soaked paw over his mouth. "Stop," she said. "It's not worth it. The damage has been done. There's no turning back." She took her paw off of her brother's mouth and placed it on his paw. "Please, Tuck. Tell Lydia and the PAW patrol that I said goodbye and that I love every single one of them." 3. "Don't say that, damn it," Tuck screamed, his voice high and shrill from crying. "You're not going to die, do you hear me? You're not going to die." 1. Ella could only let out that soft chuckle once again, however this time it was softer than usual. "I'm going to see Mom and Dad again," she said. "We'll finally be together again." Ella coughed once more, then stared at Tuck and gave him a soft smile as she continued. "I hope we'll see each other again soon. Then we'll all be a family again." She raised her paw and wiped a tear off of Tuck's cheek and held it there. "Goodbye, bro, I love you." As she said that, her eyes rolled into the back of her head as her eyelids closed slightly, and her paw began to fall off of Tuck's face before landing limp at her side. The blood stopped pouring out of her neck almost instantly. Her chest stopped rising and falling. Her body lay motionless in Tuck's arms. Tuck's eyes widened as he panicked even more than before. "Ella," he said, hoping the worst hadn't happened. "Come on, this isn't funny. Wake up." She didn't move. Tuck started shaking her at a rapid pace. "Come on, sis, wake up." His voice was even more shrill as the tears poured down uncontrollably. 1. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Wake you up. He grabbed his sister's head and clutched it tightly in his chest in a tight hug, his loud sobs echoing all throughout the house. No matter how hard Tuck tried to get his sister to open her eyes, nothing worked. His sister, his own flesh and blood, the one was always there for him, was dead, and it was all because of him. He was now a murderer. A monster. And a super baddie. The thing he never thought he would become. The thing he did not want to become. And yet, here he was, having just committed the most heinous, most evil act of all. Tuck prayed that this wasn't really happening. That it was just some horrific fantasy that he had made up in his mind, or a nightmare that he could wake himself up from. However, he wasn't imagining things, nor was he sleeping. It was all real. Ella was dead, and there was nothing he could do about it. All of this because of a simple, stupid argument over something so minor that could be resolved had they worked together. But alas, it was too late. After a few seconds, Tuck pulled his sister's body down gently off of his shoulder and rested her head onto the floor. Through his blurred vision from his tears, he looked into his sister's half-open, lifeless blue eyes. With a choked sob, he lifted his paw to her eyelids and wiped it down to close them. 1. I'm so sorry, sis, Tuck choked softly. I love you. Then he shut his eyes and faced the floor as his sobs echoed throughout the house once again. He continued to cry for a few more seconds. But then, a growl started to build in his throat. His muscles tensed as he clenched his teeth tightly. The rage was filling him once again. However, this time, he was angry at himself. Angry for being so selfish during the Ladybird mission. Angry for arguing with his sister over the selfishness that led up letting Ladybird escape. And, most of all, angry for taking the life of his own flesh and blood. Taking it away so viciously and horrifically. Now he wanted to take it out on everything around him, to hurt himself because he thought he deserved it for what he had done. Erf. Tuck let out another rage-filled cry, this time anguish mixed in his emotions, as he started to bang his head repeatedly on the hardwood floor. He slammed his head over and over again, each hit reminding him more of how much he loathed himself for becoming the polar opposite of what he wanted to become. Finally, he stopped banging his head on the floor, breathing heavily as he placed his paw on it. His head was bruised badly from the repeated blows he gave himself on the floor. It was in so much pain that he knew he had given himself a concussion. But he didn't care. Not one damn bit. He knew he deserved it. He had to punish himself for his horrible deed. He then turned his attention towards the living room couch. Sitting on it were two pillows. A light blue one for him and a red one for Ella. He was targeting his pillow. Growling again, he dashed towards it and pounced onto the couch and grabbed his pillow with his teeth and violently shook it around like a rag doll, the fabric tearing and sending cotton flying all around him. He didn't care about how much of a mess it was making. As long as it was from something of his, he knew that it deserved to be destroyed entirely, since he destroyed something of Ella's her life. After completely ravaging the pillow, Tuck took deep, heavy breaths, staring down at the destruction he had created. Then, the hot, searing rage transitioned into despair, as Tuck mewled and whimpered, feeling more tears fill and leave his eyes. He laid flat on his stomach and covered both of his eyes with his paws, once again filling the entire house with the sound of his agonizing bawling. What have I done? Tuck thought in his grief-stricken mind. I'm a monster. I killed my own sister. I let my emotions take full control of me. What am I going to tell Lydia? What am I going to tell Ryder and the rest of the pups? Everyone's gonna hate me. I don't deserve to breathe the same air as everyone else. I don't deserve to live. Suddenly, his pup tag beeped and a voice came through it. Tuck? Tuck, is everything all right? Our Ryder? Tuck said, trying to mask the shock and trembling in his voice, but not hiding well. What was he calling for? Tuck, Ella called me a while ago screaming, saying that you were going crazy. What's going on? Are you two okay? The golden retriever stayed silent for a few seconds, trying to think of what to say to the boy. Tuck? Oh. Sorry, Ryder. I wasn't paying attention. A voice of concern came through the tag. Tuck, are you okay? You sound like you've been crying. What's going on? Where's Ella? Is she okay? She's fine, he lied. Just had a bit of a quarrel, but everything's all right now. He hated to lie, but what else could he do? He couldn't just come out and tell the kid he had just brutally mauled his sister to death. He just couldn't. Are you sure? Ryder asked. She sounded really frightened when she called me. Yeah, we're doing okay, the retriever replied quickly. He was starting to get annoyed by Ryder's plethora of questions. Ella just decided to calm down by taking a nap. A permanent one, all because of me, he thought. Well, okay, then, Ryder replied, though he was a bit suspicious by Tuck's demeanor, but decided not to press things further. Hey. Guess what? I have great news. Tuck raised his eyebrows slightly. You do? What is it? He didn't really care what it was. He was getting more and more nervous with each passing second the call went. We caught the ladybird. Ryder explained happily. Got the statue back and everything. Tuck honestly didn't know how to react to that statement. Sure, he was happy that Ladybird was caught and the statue was back where it came from. But in the position he was in as of now, he didn't even crack a smile. Oh, that's nice, Ryder. He replied without any emotion. Hey, what's wrong? Ryder asked, concerned. Aren't you happy that we completed the mission? Oh, yeah, of course I am, Tuck replied. But it's just that. He paused and looked down at his bloodied paws. Just what? Ryder replied. It's. Tuck sighed, his mouth trembling as tears threatened to pour down again. It's nothing. Tuck, something is clearly bothering you. You sound like you're about to cry. What did you do? I said, it's nothing, Ryder, Tuck repeated. He could feel anger building up inside him again. Why couldn't Ryder just stop butting in his business and leave him alone? Tuck. Ryder said softly. If there's something you want to tell me, I'm right here. I said, it's nothing, Ryder. Tuck screamed, interrupting the PAW patrol's leader. Leave me alone. He immediately turned his pup tag off and used his paw to rip the collar off from around his neck. Then, with a cry of rage, he chucked the collar to the floor. He threw it with such force that it bounced and slid a few meters away from him. He walked over to it and realized that the pup tag had a crack going down the middle of it. He gritted his teeth and raised his paw over the tag. Then, like he had done to Ella's tag, he forcefully slammed his paw on it over and over again until it was nothing but tiny pieces of circuits and metal fragments. Adrenaline coursed through Tuck's body. He was breathing heavily, his heart pounding, as he stared down at the remains of his pup tag. Then, he let out a choked sob and began crying once again. He laid on his stomach and covered his eyes with his paws again as the waterworks resumed its cascading down his cheeks. He let out a loud howl of anguish, echoing throughout the entire household. Why? He thought. Why did I have to yell at Ryder? I've become a demon. A wicked, savage demon. I can't live like this anymore. I just can't. Tuck lowered his paws from his red, tear-stained eyes and looked over at his lifeless sister. Or whatever was left of her, the scene was just so brutal. He sniffled and let out some more sobs, as a sudden thought hit his mind. A thought that he knew was awful, but he didn't care. He then began to speak to himself in a shaky voice, it being hoarse from crying. I know what I must do now.